Hey guys, good morning. Today's morning devotion is Jesus is What's looking really through Matthew and Mark and at how Jesus was communicating with different groups of people at different points in time. And we're talking about how Jesus is really this master communicator. He's either instructing people or telling a story or asking a question, whether it's like a real question that requires a response or a rhetoric question. And when we look at these different styles of communication, he's usually instructing the people who are already inclined to listen, already inclined to obey, those who just want and need to learn. He tells stories to explain more complicated things or harder truths to accept right off the bat. A lot of times, this is when we're dealing with matters of correction or when Jesus is helping someone to self-reflect. And then he also told stories or spoken parables when speaking to mixed crowds. So to some people who wanted to understand, they would. And to those who didn't really want to understand, they were just being a little bit nosy. They wouldn't understand what he was talking about. And his stories then were like a filter or like a code to be deciphered by those who truly wanted to understand. And then when it comes to asking questions, he asked questions to those he knew were in need. So his questions in those instances were giving an opportunity for people to speak to their need, to share what they wanted, what they were seeking. And he also asked rhetorical questions, and this was often to emphasize a point or to show a disappointment or lack of growth or development or just like an unmet expectation. Rhetorical questions, I think we already know this today, are usually not good, right? Like usually you're being smart with someone or you're like being sarcastic a little bit. So when Jesus was asking rhetorical questions, like it typically wasn't like a good sign, but he was using it to contrast what was with what should be. So the rhetorical question usually involved what should be, and then it would contrast with what was currently being experienced. But regardless of how Jesus communicated, he speaks knowing exactly who he's speaking to, and then he knows exactly how to communicate with them. And if Jesus is this master communicator, then so should we. If he knows how to tailor how he's speaking to who he's speaking to, then that means he can also teach us how to do the same. Y'all, we need varying communication styles because not everyone receives information in the same way. So we need to know how to speak to people in a way that they will understand, in a way that they will be able to receive the message we're sharing with them. And God can show us how to communicate with different people. We know children and adults, children and elderly, adults and elderly have different communication styles. There's the artistic person differs from like the numbers or logical person. The pessimistic person differs from the optimistic person. Like there's all these different kinds of people who receive information differently. So many people who need like the message, they need to hear the good news, they need to hear truth, but they're going to receive it in a different way. They need the message driven home differently. So Jesus' message, it never changed. He always wants to help, heal, and deliver. But how he got there, how he communicated his goals, how he communicated those expectations and what he came to do, like, yeah, that changed. His vehicle, the how changes according to the who that he's speaking to. So perhaps we need to ask God to help us to more effectively communicate his word, his message, his good news to the world. And that's why it's important that we're all sharing the good news. That's why it's important that we are all doing our part to share the gospel, to speak truth, to encourage one another, because we all communicate differently. And who knows, there could be a whole world, a whole nation, or maybe just one person waiting for your communication, for your communication style. So let's like investigate what our communication styles are, and then ask God to help us communicate with people who may receive information and messages differently so that we can be more effective in our communication. You guys have a great and wonderful day today. Bye, y'all.